So you've got your data content mapped out. Now it's time to examine the context in which those data will be communicated. We're going to kick this section off with a thought experiment. Imagine that you need to describe a project you are working on to a coworker who is a direct peer of yours. Take a few minutes to think about it and write down what you'd tell them. Now take that same project and write down how you'd explain it to your city's mayor. The formal definition of the term is that context encompasses the circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms in which it can be fully understood and assessed. Think about that in relation to the exercise you just did. How much could you presume that your colleagues already knew, which you had to spend more time explaining and providing context about for the mayor? As another example, the conversation about farming practices amongst farmers will be very different than one between farmers and politicians or business people. These are examples of high versus low context communications. High context refers to settings in which people have long established deep connections. Because of the depth of the connection between the members of the group, a lot of communication is understood through implication and needn't be stated explicitly. Your family and possibly coworkers are a good example of a high context situation. In contrast, low context situations involve people that don't have that depth of experience, so their communication is more formal and requires far more explicit, fact-based exchanges of information. You need to provide more context in this case in order to communicate the same information you would in a high context exchange. This is very important to keep in mind as you plan your data communication. Who is your audience? Hopefully you went through the RACI Responsible, Accountable, Consult, Inform exercise in our other course on data culture, so you know exactly who you'll be communicating your data results to. If you haven't, take a few minutes to think through and write down who might be included and whether any of them fit more into the low context category. If so, that sets the stage for your communication plan. You're going to need to design visualizations and supporting material geared towards that particular person first and foremost. Consider other factors like how much time you have, whether they're likely to read much, if you should have a handout to leave behind, and so forth. You'll want to have all this established before you start creating any form of visualization or report. Other factors that you might not have considered are also part of the context of your data communication. Time pressures, office politics, resource and budget constraints, and tool options all impact what you can do within a given amount of time. It is critical to know your limitations and be realistic. There is only so much that you can accomplish with the tools and resources you have available. Understanding the context in which your data visualization will be created and communicated sets you up for greater success on both fronts.